Hey everybody, today I'm going to be having a look at this little bitty action camera. Now this is given to me by a relative, so I didn't actually buy it myself. So I don't know the actual cost of it, but if I were to guess, I guess it would have cost around $15 to $30 or something like that. I think it was bought off of eBay or some other site like that. Look at the side of it. Have a micro SD slot there and a micro USB port there for charging and accessing files. On the top you have the shutter button and an indicator, I do believe. Here's the power button, and also this serves as switching through modes, I do believe. On the side you have these navigation buttons. And on the back you have a 2-inch LCD display. And it says action camera. Down here is where the battery is located. If I can get that off of there, that'd be great. Inside it has a 3.7 volt or 3.6 volt lithium-ion battery, 900 milliamp hours, here's a look inside. Camera's actually focusing on the bottom. You can see terminals where battery meets up. It's your typical single cell lithium-ion battery. Now we probably just reset the date and time and everything, which is not a bad thing, because I'm interested to show you exactly how this thing is configured as default. This thing is so generic, does not have a brand, and it's so generic that it didn't even come in a box, from what I understand. So again, roughly $15 to $30, I'm going to guess, is how much the purchase price of this was. And we'll power it up in just a moment. The thing was so generic that, again, it didn't come in a box, I don't think. And they just gave you a big stack of accessories. Many of them I've already unbagged. It comes with this really nice watertight case. Very well built case. And here are just the buttons for accessing. You know, these are all the different buttons, like on the front, the side, and the top. Here's where the lens sits into place right here. And on the bottom, you have a variety of different mounts that will work with this. So you have, again, a bunch of different mounts. Bag full of different straps for probably mounting to like a helmet or something like that. Lots of versatility on how you can mount this thing. Pretty typical of action cameras. You have this mount here for mounting the camera outside of the watertight case. For example, if you don't need to have it in the watertight case, you just mount it in here like this. And all it is just a little bit loose. It does get a pretty good fit. And on the bottom here is where you can thread it into a tripod. Here we have a tripod thread. There's the way you can thread other cameras onto this and use the accessories for mounting, again, your own camera. We have what looks to be a bicycle mount right here. So essentially, you can also use, of course, use this to thread into here for if you're wanting to use the camera outside the case. But again, you could use this for other cameras, which here soon you'll find this might be quite useful. Here's another mount right here. Again, lots of different accessories here. Okay, I think this may have some adhesive on it, certain on that. It's either as adhesive or that's just padding. I think it might just be padding. So not exactly sure what that is for. They don't give you much documentation at all with this. Not looking so I can find a documentation for it. I mean, it's just a little sheet, really. That's all it is. Again, lots of different accessories. So if you're going to use it with the case, you have, I believe this one here is to be used with like those straps that we previously looked at. This one here is for a bicycle handlebar. This here can be used to use the other mounts with the camera outside the case or to mount another camera. So, let's go and have a look at the manual if I can find it. Okay guys, let's go and have a look at the manual. Here's where things are going to get quite interesting. Yeah. This, guys, is the manual. Yep. This is the manual. Again, very generic. Sports cam. Waterproof, full HD 1080p. Claims that it has a 1.5 or a 2-inch LCD, 140 degree wide angle lens, full HD 1080p, waterproof up to 30 meters, and up to 1.5 hours of battery life. And it shows you where the battery door is at, the battery door latch. There's you can see where all the different buttons are at. And note that the camera picture looks a little different than the one we actually have. So there it is in the case. And there is a look at the accessories that it comes with. Just going to flip over to the back. So mounting the camera. It shows how you can mount the camera to helmets, gear, and equipment. Now here's where things get interesting, and I want you guys to take a close look at the little images of the menus supposedly that the camera has. There's your options for date stamp, looping video, the exposure. Now have a look at this. Have a careful look at what the menu claims to have. Here's your resolution options. Single shot, burst photo, time lapse, continuous lapse, system settings. This is what it claims to have in the menu. Alright, let's look at the getting started section. It says, hello, congratulations on your new camera. This user manual will help you learn the basics of capturing live photos and grabbable moments. It says, turn camera on and repeatedly press the power mode button to cycle through camera modes. You record video. And it's funny, 720 30 frames per second or VGA 30 frames per second. It doesn't even mention 1080 right here. And again, take a careful look at the illustrations of what the screen should look like. Just take a careful look at the timer, the HD, the little video camera symbol on the left, the battery indicator on the lower left, and here's playback. Again, take a careful look, because you're going to be surprised what we see when we actually start this camera up. Now, although this manual, there's not really much to it other than it just being a sheet of paper. It is rather interesting how this manual isn't a bunch of China English. It's pretty well worded. So here it's settings. Have a close look at this menu illustration. Let me try to get this bent around to where I can get it close to the camera. So according to this manual, that's what a menu should look like. Here is a look at estimated time for what size card you have in the camera. Now again, there's no mention here of 1080p. It's just showing 720p and 480p. Says the camera is compatible with 8GB, 16GB, and 32GB capacity micro SD, HC, and micro SD XC memory cards. Now, if it's over 32GB, then it's usually then it always will be a micro SD XC. So, theoretically, it should be compatible with 64GB cards and larger. At least from what I've read online, people had given feedback saying that this manual said no, it wouldn't work with cards over 32GB, but in fact it did. Here it talks about charging the battery. It mentions that the battery goes dead, the camera will save the file and power off. Okay, so now you've had a look at the manual. Let's go and power this thing up. Now, does this look anything like what the manual just showed us? Absolutely not. Let's look at the menu. And also, I want to go and note that, since I pulled the battery out, the date and time has totally reset to January 1st, 2018. So it must be when that might be the default date of the firmware on this thing, I don't know. But things are already not looking quite right here. Notice how it's showing a full 4x3 video, despite right here. See if it'll focus and show you. There you go. See how it says 1080? Well, it's not actually recording in 1080p, guys. No matter what I set this here to, no matter what I set it to, it will record in 640 by 480. Have a look at this. So we have 1080p, 720p, and VGA. VGA is 640 by 480 on this guy. So if I set the VGA, or if I set it to 1080p or 720p, regardless of what it's set to, it always records in 640 by 480. By default, the timestamp is on, so it slaps a humongous date and time right in the middle of the freaking video. This is disabled. That is turned off. Voice record, so sound is on. Press and hold and you go to the next column. And it looks like it's showing 60 Hz for the frequency. Now notice how it says light frequency? Notice how this menu looks absolutely nothing like the freaking manual? Looks nothing like it. So yeah, according to the manual, it's supposed to look like, that right there. It looks absolutely nothing like it. Now, by default, this thing is set to 50 Hz. So that's one thing I had to go in and change. And now, I didn't actually, this isn't the default setting. I did change it to PC cam to see what it would do. And also, I should mention that every time I tried to use it as a webcam, debut video capture would just freeze up. It would crash it. And it does give you this firmware version number, which Googling that gives you absolutely no information whatsoever. Guys, this is a knockoff of a knockoff of a GoPro. This is like a knockoff of an SJ4000 action camera from what I had researched online. And some of these other cameras actually did really good video. However, this one here, it quite frankly is a piece of crap as far as its video goes. Let's go to the menu, and we are going to shoot some video. So this is the camera recording, and again, if we look at record video, so take a close look at the display here, and if you look at the manual, it looks absolutely nothing like it. Not at all. Looks totally different. For one thing, it's recording in 4:3, not 16:9. No, it's not recording in widescreen. So I'm going to stop recording. And I'm going to switch over to a different recording mode. Let's go to 720p. And you see these, like this left button for exit and OK for setup. It's like how do you access it? So, okay, so presumably this is being used as an OK button. It's almost like this firmware was not really designed for this camera. To be quite honest, it seems. Okay, so despite it showing 720p, it is recording in 640x480. So we're going to do another video. So we are recording now, and it claims that it's doing 720p. However, it's still doing 640x480. And not to mention, the audio sounds absolutely terrible. You'll get to hear it when we look back at these video clips. Absolutely terrible. Okay, so one more time. Go in and change. See, we'll go to VGA. So, VGA. This is the only time it should look like this. And it's going to do another 640x480 clip. I'll go ahead and set this back to 1080. For example, I'm going to try this out. Set that to on. And I think if video time is enabled, it will place a video, just the timestamp of the video time since the video was started somewhere in the actual video itself. So we're back in 1080. This acts like a digital zoom. These buttons here act like a digital zoom. If you tap mode, okay, so motion detect is supposedly enabled. If I tap mode, or if I, let's see, if I hold it, it shuts off. Okay, so I think it was recording right then and there because I had motion detect turned on, and when it detects motion, it would record. So it acts like almost like a deer camera, just about, I think. So let's go ahead and turn motion detect off. Okay, so if I tap the power button, which is also the mode button, we are now, it claims that it's going to do a 3 megapixel photo. Let's see here. and it just took a photo. By pressing hold here, it only gives you options for size. Now where is the option for, time lapse and all the stuff it mentioned in the manual? You have only up to 3 megapixels according to the camera, but according to the manual, it claims it can do a resolution up to 5 megapixels. So yeah, it's like this manual wasn't even written for this camera. Yeah, guys, you can see where I'm going with this already. This is pretty freaking bad. So let's go into setup, actually. Again, 3 megapixels is as high as this thing will go according to this firmware. And this is just general setup for the actual camera. And just for the heck out, just one more photo. Yeah, guys, this is pretty bad. If you tap the mode button again, oh wow, you have an audio recorder. And here's playback. So yeah, the firmware that's on this camera doesn't even line up with the menus that are in the manual. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I'm thinking if perhaps I could locate a different firmware that's compatible with this thing, we could actually get better features out of it. But yeah, so yeah, this thing literally just records, in its current state, only records in 640 by 480 and shoots 3 megapixel photos and can be an audio recorder. But it claims it can do 1080p HD footage. So, if perhaps there is no way we can flash a firmware on this guy, it's pretty much garbage. Which is why it is a good thing that it came with this, so that I can use its included brackets and whatnot for my other action camera. Let's go have a look at it. Here's my Midland XTC-280 action camera. I got this for Christmas back in, I think 2013 or 2014, one of them 2 years I think. Haven't used it a whole lot, but this is a 1080p HD action camera. Unlike the thing that we just looked at, this does not have an LCD display on it. You pretty much just flip on record and hope you're getting exactly what you're wanting to get. Pretty much. On the back you have mini USB, not micro USB. And we have, let's see, micro SD slot, and this little low/high switch. When it's set to low, the camera records in 720p 60 FPS. When it's switched to high, it records in 1080p at 30 frames per second. So let's go ahead and pop in a memory card and see what this thing can do. Now, of course, I'll have to include the footage in this video, which I'm going to do for both cameras, that way you can see. And you have 3 indicators on this one. I'm going to go ahead and start recording. It's going to power up and record once I start it up. Shows that the battery is full by showing a solid blue LED, and it shows that the memory is okay, it's not full. And when it's flashing, it's recording. So recording in 1080p. I'm going to actually pull the camera off the screen for a moment to pan around just a little bit. Camera does have a wide angle lens on it. I think it's wide angle. And when you pull it back, it gives you a series of beeps and shuts off. We'll go and demonstrate the 720p mode. Now in 720p, it acts sort of like just digital zoom. It shows you less video frame, but it records in 60 frames per second. So let's go ahead and start it up. And it's recording now. Do the same sort of pan around. And just like before, it shuts off. So this is the watertight case that comes with the new action cam. I'm going to swap this card back over into that camera and do a quick video inside the case to see what it sounds like. Let me go find what I did with the camera. Okay, so I got the camera. Let's go ahead and pop in the SD card, micro SD card. And we'll place it inside the case. Helps you put it in the right direction. This is a well-built case. You know, given the quality of the accessories that come with it, it's like you gotta wonder if it's a just crappy firmware that's loaded on this device. Like the hardware in there could be more capable of doing something better, but they chose to load some really crappy firmware on the device instead, which limited its capabilities. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it up. You barely even hear it. We're in 1080 mode. At least it says 1080p, which we already know is going to be 640 by 480. Whoops, I held it too long. I'm going to start the Plexi so we can review the files. Now, I'll actually put the videos in this video so you can see them very well. Just going to start recording. And it's recording. So there's that. And we'll do the same with the Midland camera. Go ahead and power this one off. I'll tell you, I'm thinking it's firmware related. Again, I think if this thing can be loaded with some better firmware, it would actually be a better device. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put the Midland camera into its watertight case. Now, I don't know the exact depth this one is good for, but Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and switch the switch over to 1080p resolution. This one slides into place like this. I need to go ahead and install the SD card. I almost forgot. So to open this one up, it's just that simple. Camera comes out. Little SD card, micro SD card comes out. We'll install it into the Midland camera. This drops in like this. Close it like that. And there you go. Now this one, the way the Midland camera works is the switch has a magnet on it. I think it's a magnet, and probably a Hall effect sensor inside the camera to know when the switch is on, because we're going to switch this on and it doesn't actually move the internal switch. It's just a slider. So we'll go ahead and slide on to record. And we are recording. This is recording inside the case, which I'm sure is going to probably muffle the audio down quite some bit. This is pretty typical of these things. This was one of the GoPro's competitors out there. Now, I don't remember exactly what the price of this one was. However, it was cheaper than the GoPro at pretty much all times, I do think. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop recording. You just pull back this way. The only thing about this case, though, that I don't like, just going to pull the camera out. The one thing I don't like about this style case is this here moves back and forth so easily, which means you could inadvertently slide this forward and the camera would start recording and eat up your memory and drain your battery, which would not be good. So, back to the generic 1080p sports camera, or sports cam, according to the manual, which the manual doesn't even line up with the menus and stuff that's on this device. Yeah, it's a real disgrace, I think. This is why you gotta be careful when you are shopping for stuff like this. And really, to be honest, the person who got this for me knew somebody who had bought one and had a good experience with it. Now, from what I'd seen on YouTube, some people had bought very similar models of this, and they were also branded as sports cam. They came in a box and had the same case, looked almost identical to this, had the same accessories, but shot really good 1080p footage inside and outside of the watertight case. So it's like look at a draw. You're going to get one that has a crappy firmware, you're going to get one that has decent firmware. See, I'm thinking it's firmware. So let's go and take a moment to review the files that these cameras created. And again, I'm going to actually put the video files into the video so that way you can actually see them 100%. I'm going to pop this little memory card into the card reader on the Cube Computer Plexi, and we'll have a look at the actual files and the resolutions and whatnot. Okay, so here's what you get when you pop the card into the computer and look what's on the card. This is the folder that the Midland camera records too. And this is the folder that the little sports camera records to. And let's have a look at these photos. I'm going to look at the properties of them. And look, even the photos, guys, even the photos are 640 by 480. You know what, guys? That is either the same resolution or less resolution than a Sony Mavica camera that recorded to floppy disk back in the 90s. Like, are you serious? Yeah, have a look. Have a look at this. I don't know what to say here. Hang on just a second, I got something good for you. Okay guys, so here you're looking at a photo that was shot with a Sony Mavica floppy disk camera back in 1999. This is when I was in Cherokee, North Carolina. I was about 8 years old here. And this is the photo from this little sports cam. So yeah, this thing is on par with cameras from the 1990s as far as image quality goes. Look at that. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking serious? Yeah, that's terrible. 640 by 480. Let's look at the properties of all these videos. Details. 640 by 480. 30 FPS. That was with the camera set to 1080. This is what it's set to 720. And it's actually, I can't remember if I shot one. And let's see, let's just go ahead and play it. So pretty much that's what you get. Oh, this is when I had it set to motion detect, more or less gear camera mode. But that was with 720p selected as the record mode, and this was with 1080p selected as the record mode. In contrast, let's go look at what the Midland camera can do. And again, we'll look at these videos again at the end of this video. This is 1080p. You can see the wide angle lens on the Midland camera. Now, I don't have speakers hooked up or anything, so there's no sound right now. However, you'll get to hear the sound. I'm going to advance through this a little bit. You can see how the colors are relatively good. Yeah, after reviewing this footage, I kind of question myself why I haven't used this camera more often. Probably because it doesn't record very good at night, which is when I do a lot of my bike riding. But and this is in 720p. It literally just acts like digital zoom. It just, you get more or less the center portion of the video. Yeah, this is inside the watertight case. Okay, so that wraps that up. So yeah, I am not satisfied with how poor this thing is. And again, I think it's just the I think it's a firmware. Honestly, I think it has to do with firmware. I think if I was able to load in a better firmware that's compatible with this hardware, I may potentially have a decent 1080p action camera on my hands. It's just, you're given the quality of the accessories that came with it, it's like, literally. For example, my mom's smartphone, I forget exactly what model phone she has, but sometime last year her phone took a software update, and her phone can record in 1080p and actually do it quite well. However, after this certain update, the built-in camera application would just record in 640 by 480 and do it quite poorly. We found this out last winter when it was snowing, and I had this camera, but the battery was dead, so I couldn't do an action camera record. So Mom ripped out her phone, and it recorded video that you would actually expect from a cell phone from the early to mid 2000s. Yeah. But I installed Open Camera, and voila, we have full 1080p again. So yeah, it's like, I'm thinking it's possibly firmware related as far as why this thing is being such a piece of crap. Why the video and the photos do nothing more than 640 by 480. So anyways, let's go and review that video here so we can actually hear everything and see it perfectly. So this is the camera recording, and again, if we look at record video, so take a close look at the display here, and if you look at the manual, it looks absolutely nothing like it. Not at all. Looks totally different. For one thing, it's recording in 4:3, not 16:9. No, it's not recording in widescreen. So I'm going to stop recording. So we are recording now. And it claims that it's doing 720p. However, it's still doing 640 by 480. And not to mention, the audio sounds absolutely terrible. You'll get to hear it when we look back at these video clips. Absolutely terrible. And it's going to do another 640 by 480 clip. And it's recording. Shows that the battery is full by showing a solid blue LED. And it shows that the memory is okay, it's not full. And when it's flashing, it's recording. So recording in 1080p. I'm going to actually pull the camera off the screen for a moment to pan around just a little bit. Camera does have a wide angle lens on it. I think it's wide angle. And it's recording now. Do the same sort of pan around. And just like before. And we are recording. This is recording inside the case, which I'm sure will probably muffle the audio down quite some bit. It's pretty typical of these things. This was one of the GoPro's competitors out there. I don't know exactly what the price of this one was. However, it was cheaper than the GoPro. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start recording. Okay, guys. Now you've seen the video. Tell me what you think in the comments. I want to know. Have any of you guys ended up with one of these in a similar situation to where it was not doing a good video? And were you able to flash any better firmware onto the thing? Again, I'll power this up and we'll look at the firmware version. Have you guys been able to flash a camera like this and actually get it to work better? Because I've seen several cameras on YouTube, people buying these cameras almost identical to this and actually getting really good footage out of them. So yeah, feel free to let me know in the comments, because I'd hate to destroy this thing. Because if I can't get this thing to do any better than what it's doing, because the person who got it from me, they can't return it, they've had it too long. You know, I may be cracking into this thing to harvest the lens and stuff out of it. I'd rather not. I'd better be able to fix it and make it into something somewhat decent. So yeah, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed the video, thanks for watching. Well guys, that's it for this one. But it doesn't have to be. There's plenty more videos on the channel to check out. Also, if you liked the video, please click the like button. And if you absolutely hated it, there is the alternative button as well. But yeah, please subscribe to the channel. I definitely appreciate it. And remember to click the bell so that we get notified of all updates. Also, if you're interested in things aside from computers and technology, check out my second channel. It's CubeComp MTDX. Over there you'll find videos about weather, elevators, bicycling, and pretty much whatever else I figure out to upload. So yeah, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for your support.